sum of its parts, or at least that the parts in interaction produce properties that could not be forecast by studying the parts in isolation of one another or by simply adding them up. The terms synergy, emergent properties, and levels of analysis all have applicability here. Fourth principle of ecology, balance, limits, and thresholds. An emphasis on continuous growth characterizes modern economic, business, and governmental discourses. Even when businesses adopt a veil of environmentalism, as in their often misleading discourse concerning sustainable development, the basic thrust most often is sustaining economic growth, not sustaining the integrity of the biosphere. Canada's new Environment Minister, Stéphane Dion, is now contemplating changing the name of his ministry to the Department of Sustainable Economy. Ecologist Herman Daly, in contrast, defines sustainable development as, quote, development without growth, beyond environmental carrying capacity. So bearing in mind these principles of ecology, let's turn to the ecological mindset of Innis's self-proclaimed disciple, Marshall McLuhan. Like Innis, McLuhan made few, if any, direct allusions to humans' impact on the Earth's capacity to sustain life. Given the aforementioned properties of ecological thought, however, it is easy and accurate to pronounce McLuhan, like Innis, at least incipiently, an environmentalist from whom we have much to learn. Indeed, McLuhan described his work as taking an ecological approach. Point 1, interdependence, holism versus methodological individualism. McLuhan was, of course, a holistic thinker who railed against specialties and insisted that pattern recognition must predominate in an age of information speed-up. He declared, the electric age is the age of ecology. It is the study and projection of the total environment of organisms and people because of the instant coherence of all factors made possible by moving information at electric speeds. He added, our ecological approach is Paleolithic. It assumes total involvement in process rather than a fragmentation and detachment. Point 2, more than the sum of the parts. As befits an incipient environmentalist, McLuhan, like Innis, was dialectical. Figure ground, eye, ear, hot, cool, logical, analogical, phonetic, non-phonetic, print, manuscript, medium, message. These are but a few of the bipolarities which he held in tension to forward his media analysis. He also affirmed the principle of reversal, which he called chiasmus, whereby each concept or force is held to carry the seed of its opposite. McLuhan, in brief, always focused on interplays, not individual objects. He insisted that it was in the gaps, or the intervals, as between the axle and the wheel, that the action takes place. It is from the gaps or intervals, not connections, that knowledge or proportions and hence analogies stems. It is also the existence of gaps or intervals to be filled in by auditors and spectators that defines acoustic, i.e. ecological, space, as opposed to mechanical visual space. An appropriate synonym indeed for McLuhan's acoustic space would be ecological understanding and perception, or in my terms, a culture of ecology. Note too that by filling in, spectators or auditors are no longer the detached, transcendent beings presumed by objective scientific and social scientific thought, but rather are very much a part of the warp and woof of the phenomena being studied. Again, an ecological proposition. Point 3, human nature. Perhaps the single most important idea running through the corpus of McLuhan's writings is his depiction of human artifacts as extensions of the body and or mind, resulting in two distinct but related consequences. First, as extensions, artifacts come between or mediate human interactions, thereby producing profound societal consequences, either literate mechanical culture or electronic organic culture, for instance. Second, artifacts transform human nature, an implication again being that media have profound societal consequences. For McLuhan, media amplify one sensory receptor relative to the others. Consequently, new media reorchestrate the sensorium, that is, the balance among the various senses. By rebalancing the interplay among the senses, particularly eye versus ear, media alter human nature, even to the point that humans' understanding of the self and their surroundings is changed fundamentally. Electric technologies for McLuhan amplify, not select body parts, but extend and outer the entire central nervous system. The result is to involve us in the whole of mankind, I'm quoting here, and to incorporate the whole of mankind in us. McLuhan differs from Paul Ehrlich in the sense that he did not emphasize technological change and hence the evolution of human nature as an adaptive strategy. Precisely the opposite. McLuhan claimed that with print there resulted an overemphasis on the eye, with the result that humans lost touch with the integrated nature of the world around them. He also claimed, however, that electronics is placing humankind back in touch with the radical interdependencies so familiar to our ancestors and to ecologists today. Non-genetic or extragenetic evolution through the development of human artifacts makes ecology, and by implication McLuhan, far more optimistic than, say, mainstream economic doctrine. Rather than proposing, as economics essentially does, that humans are inextricably, or by their very nature, insatiable appetitive machines, ecology and McLuhan propose that human nature continuously evolves. Human nature today need not and will not be human nature tomorrow. The fourth point, limits and thresholds. McLuhan articulated 4 laws of the media, which he set out as combined propositions and questions. These statements, questions manifest an ecological cast of mind. They call attention, for example, to interdependencies and to changes that are sudden, irreversible, and not incremental. Once a threshold is passed, McLuhan asserts, significant changes occur. These laws contrast with standard economic thinking, which often proposes infinite bi-directional substitutions through the working of commodity exchange in the system of prices, and no dramatic leaps. Point number 5, evolutionary. Finally, McLuhan presents a dynamic evolutionary analysis of society. His writings are certainly in keeping with ecological approaches, but contrast fundamentally with mainstream economics, which is decidedly non-evolutionary and proposes timeless principles applicable to all cultures of all times in the form of economic laws. So I've lost my last page, and I don't have it memorized, so I'll just try to summarize. In this day in which our environment is threatened, there are certain dysfunctional ways of thinking. One is the lapse of the dialectic. A second is our emphasis on rugged individualism. And what Innis and McLuhan do is to point us in a more healthy direction as we look at things more in an interactive, holistic point of view, more dialectical. So thank you very much.